Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Lori with the Produce Moms Podcast. And I'm so excited about today's guest. He's amazing. He's a repeat guest on the podcast. And you know, the adage, the man, the myth, the legend, I feel like that totally applies to Brittan Ladd. And when we were thinking about the podcast in 2022, Helena, who works hand in hand with me on the podcast at the Produce Moms, she and I were both very quick to say, oh my gosh, let's get Brittan back on the show. Let's talk about current state of grocery retail. Let's talk about 2022 and what everyone should be thinking about, expecting, etc. Brittan has a great background. He brings so much knowledge on everything grocery retail, logistics. He's definitely a world-renowned thought leader and industry expert, literally has worked with some of the best grocery retailers all throughout this globe. So with that, Brittan, we're really glad that you're back on the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I always love being here.
You're the best. We love having you on this show. And I know I say it every time I talk to you, but you truly have taught me so much about this industry. And one of the very first things you taught me was retailing comes down to two things. This is a direct quote from your first appearance on the Produce Moms podcast. I'm going to say it and you tell me if that still applies. So retail comes down to two things. It's logistics and marketing.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. So that hasn't changed.
No. And the reason why I maintain that point of view is because as I continue to research the industry and work with clients globally, the things that I find I have a weakness in is one of those two, either their logistics or their marketing. So when I'm able to improve the logistics and marketing, it has an immediate residual effect on the company. And then you can look through other areas of the company as well. But yet it really does come down to, in my opinion, retailing is about two things, marketing and logistics. It just is. Okay. So for the listeners that aren't familiar with you and haven't, listened to your episodes in the archive, let's give them a brief bio, like introduce yourself, tell them a little bit more about your work history and how you became this, frankly, world-renowned expert that's been resourced by not only the Produce Moms podcast, but I mean, you're always in Forbes, you're on, Fox Business, all sorts of national platforms very often. And certainly one of the leading thought leaders on all things grocery industry and retailing on LinkedIn, which is how I found you. So I'd love that brief intro from you right now and a little bit more about your background. Sure. Well, really, the thing I'm most proud of is I served in the Marines for 6 years. I was discharged from the Marines. I then earned a bachelor's degree. I went on to earn 3 master's degrees. And I started working in different companies, different retailers, focusing on logistics, supply chain. And I really fell in love with doing research. And so over the years, what I find is that because I do so much research, it gives me an ability to form opinions and have a point of view on different topics. But more importantly, I start to identify trends. Mm-hmm. And so how I became so well known in the industry is that right around 2013, I started to write down my thoughts. And I wrote a research paper, about a 100-page research paper. And in that paper, it's called A Beautiful Way to Save Woolworths. I apply game theory to the grocery industry globally. And I had the good sense to write in the paper that I believed Amazon should acquire Whole Foods. And I designed stores for Amazon to build that I call the multi-format stores. And anyone could go to my LinkedIn profile. They can go to articles, A Beautiful Way to Save Woolworths, and they can read that paper. And what they will find is that the stores Amazon is building today, the Amazon Fresh stores, are identical to the design that I wrote in 2013. Much of what Amazon is doing is what I wrote about in 2013. Mm-hmm. And when I left Amazon and I started my own practice, the first company that hired me was Kroger. And I'm the person who talked Kroger into forming an agreement with the company Ocado. And if you read a paper on my LinkedIn profile called Amazon Acquires Whole Foods, Now What? In that paper, I outlined what Kroger should do for strategy. Mm-hmm. And so executives from Kroger read that paper, they hired me, and I implemented that strategy for them. And I started to write about it. And because I was accurate, and I was accurate because of all the research I did, I started to get noticed by the press, print media, Fox News, CNN, the media in Great Britain and China, and it just snowballed from there. But really what I did was write down my thoughts a lot in my own articles and on LinkedIn especially. And I have no fear of saying, this is what I think a company should do. I have no fear at all saying, this is what I believe will happen. And I'm right the majority of the time. Sometimes I'm wrong, but because I do so much research, people enjoy reading what I write because it's accurate, but it's also that I'm able to articulate, this is why something will happen. This is why this may be a bigger trend than people realize, or why this is really not a trend at all. It's a fad and it's going to disappear very quickly. So that's really what's allowed me to be recognized. And I'm always grateful for the fact that people read what I write. And I'm so grateful that people like to reach out to me and share their thoughts with me. And I've learned as much from them as frankly, I think they've learned from me.
Yeah, it's amazing. And for those of you that aren't actively following Brittan on LinkedIn, you have to. That's actually how him and I became connected, because I started following him and I really don't know how I started following him. I probably was following a hashtag that he had written about or something. And then I continued to follow along and I was learning so much. And then one day I just sent him a LinkedIn message and said, hey, you've taught me so much as a reader of your content. I've got a podcast. And he was like within our first 50 guests on the Produce Moms podcast. He was, and so that's another amazing thing about Brittan. He's accessible, like you're a thought leader that is highly accessible to folks. So let's talk about 2022. So here we are in a new year. 2021 was kind of like 2020. I feel like, a lot of chaos, a lot of we're dealing with the pandemic. Consumer insights and data were all over the place. But let's just kind of start with current state, if you don't mind.
Well, so in current state, certainly there are a lot of good things to talk about in the grocery industry, a lot of bad things. The bad things certainly come down to inflation, the rising cost of products in the store. And it's really having a bigger impact than people realize. The media isn't covering it as much as they should. But this is something that's only going to get worse. I wrote a year and a half ago that this was one of the things I was most concerned about, was that inflation easily could go to double digits. And I believe that's absolutely going to be true. And it could even be significantly higher than it's ever happened before. Things have a way of snowballing when you have the situation we're in with very low unemployment, the fact that you have very high inflation, you have a lot of companies trying to go into the technology realm, you have shortages, you have supply chain disruptions. So there's this perfect storm of things that absolutely can impact the price of consumer goods, and it can really wreak havoc on the consumer. As far as 2022, really what's going to happen is there's going to be a massive acceleration in all things technology, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's robotics, micro-fulfillment. Companies are absolutely going to continue to invest in robotics and automation and software as much as they can. And really what they're looking for is, how do I meet demand, but do so leveraging primarily automation to do it? They're struggling to find people. When they do find people, they don't stay. And they realize they have to change their business model. There's only so much you can do if you're a grocery retailer. If you sell groceries, you have to have a place to sell them. So you have already invested in stores. And unless you're willing to just simply shut down your stores and go do something different, you have no choice but to maintain those stores. So stores are going to shift. You'll see more and more companies invest in smart carts, the grocery smart carts. Instacart acquired a company called Caper. They're going to be introducing more of those carts in the grocery industry. But it's really going to also be all things technology in the stores in terms of data, better data, understanding consumer behavior, and do so on an even bigger scale than what's been talked about and what's been done already. Being able to have a better understanding of who is in the store before they come into the store is the big thing. I like to use a phrase where I say check in is the new checkout. And what I mean by that is this: I've never seen I've never seen a business model that I thought was so stone age as the grocery retail industry. And what I mean is this: grocery retailers don't know who is in their stores until they've checked out.
Right.
They have checked out. It's only when the customer checks out. And it's only when the customer checks out and either has a loyalty card or a credit card that they scan with, and their name is in the system, that the retailer even know who the customer is. And I believe that's a wrong model. So I've been arguing with retailers that what you want to do is adopt the just walk out and go technology. You want to adopt technology so when Brittan Ladd or Lori Taylor walks into the store, the retailer says, Lori's back. And I know based on Lori's history, these are the items she's probably going to buy. And I'm 99% sure she'll buy one of these 20 items, or she'll buy all these 20 items. So I'm immediately going to be sending signals to her that I'm going to give you discounts on those. But I also know Lori has an interest in these other products. So I'm going to start introducing new products to you, hoping that you'll do an impulse buy. Because anytime a consumer does an impulse buy, me as the retailer makes additional money. So I say to retailers, check in is the new checkout. Find out who your customer is before they come in the store, but also track them 100% when they're in the store. Be able to introduce things to them, be able to guide them to make decisions that generate more revenue for you, but that are better for that customer. So we're going to see more of that certainly in 2022 than I believe we've ever seen.
Yeah, amazing. And the check-in model, I just took my kids to an Indiana Pacer game, and that they're using that technology where, like, when you walk in, kind of like an Amazon Go store, frankly. And, I know from, an adult point of view, I'm like, okay, it's because they don't have labor to work these concession stands anymore. But my kids, of course, think it's like the coolest, most tech, like, amazing thing. They want to make TikToks about it and all of that. So it really is amazing how the technology is changing everything, and how when I consider my preteen boys, like, this is going to be a very normal concept for them. The check-in, like, that is, like, right now it's trendy and cool. And I think you're definitely spot on where it's going to be so normalized. I don't know.
Well, so what'll be interesting is, and your sons are really in an interesting position. Mm-hmm. By the time your sons are 18 to 20, what's going to happen is that they'll always be connected. Yeah. Because the technology in the automobiles, the technologies in the phones will be integrated with technologies in retail stores. So they'll always know where you are. They'll know where your sons are. They'll know where Lori is. They will know where Brittan is. And it's not that we will have to be continually checking in. It's because we'll never be checked out. We will be part of that ecosystem. We will always be checked in. We will always be tracked. And so what happens is that when your sons go to any store, they go to a gas station, they go to a grocery store, they go to a sporting event, they go to a movie, they'll be tracked. That data will be tracked. And what happens is companies then buy that data, they share that data, and everything will then be personalized to your sons. It's personalized to Lori. It's personalized to Brittan. And that leads then to all kinds of other changes that are going to take place in how stores are formed, how companies will interact with you in the home, all of that. And that's why I've written so much about be prepared for the ecosystem. But the thing that I started writing about a year and a half ago, and everyone really thought it was pretty silly of me to write about it, is when I started writing articles about virtual reality retail. Mm-hmm. About by 2030, you won't go to a website. You won't even go to a store. You'll basically shop for groceries sitting in the comfort of your own home, and you'll be in grocery stores that don't exist. They'll be virtual. And then I started to write about the metaverse. And people were like, what the hell is this? It doesn't even exist. Is this real? And I said, well, it doesn't exist today, but it will, and you need to be prepared for it. And so I've started to write more about that. It's still something so new. Even a lot of major corporations don't understand it, but it is something I keep saying to companies, whether you're a farmer, a small business owner, a major corporation, you need to be asking yourself this question: what is our metaverse strategy? How do we market ourselves in the metaverse? How do we have a presence in the metaverse? And it's something that we can't really talk in depth on this podcast. We don't have enough time, but I really do encourage your listeners to get an understanding of, well, I'm a business owner. Do I have a place in the metaverse? And my answer to you is, you'll only have a place in the metaverse if you make it happen. But if you don't make it happen, then you really run the risk of being marginalized. And that's a very dangerous thing. You will basically become irrelevant, because as the metaverse grows, it really will become the place where the majority of transactions, shopping, retail, other things are going to take place. Yeah,
it's a wild concept to get your head around, for sure. I don't know. I mean, I even as someone who kind of lives in a pretty tech savvy, personal life, and certainly in my business life, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know that I got to get moving on it, Brittan. I definitely know that. Like, you can't drag your feet. You'll be a dinosaur before you know it, right?
I'll give you an example. I have a client who's one of the most well-known fashion brands in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
And I'm working with them on a strategy for clothes that they're going to sell in the metaverse. The clothes aren't real. They don't exist, but they're brands, they're fashion. Because here's one thing about human nature that I've learned over the years, all the research I've done. No matter where people are, they want status.
Yeah.
They want to be able to portray themselves in a certain way. Now, it's hard to do it in the real world, because people can see what you drive. People can, they see the house you live in. If you say I live in a mansion, but people know you live in a single story, 2,100 square foot home, they know you're not telling the truth. Right. But in the metaverse, you can be whatever you want, but you can only be whatever you want in the metaverse for a price. And so this company like Nike just bought a marketing company that specializes in marketing in the metaverse. This fashion brand, this major fashion brand in the United Kingdom, what I'm working with them on is, how do they sell fashion in the metaverse to people who want to buy clothes that don't exist, but they'll wear them on avatars that only exist in the metaverse? Because what they're going to want to do is say to people, I'm in the metaverse and this is what I am. I have status. But the reason why it's important for your audience to understand this is what a lot of companies don't understand, is that people won't be able to turn off their presence in the metaverse. They'll still want people in the real world to see this is a person who has status in the metaverse. And how will they portray that? In the cars they drive, but especially in the clothes that they wear. So there will be a ripple effect, that there will be a need for physical items that people that mirror the items people use in the metaverse. I know it sounds crazy. I know it's hard to understand, but it will be entire lines of fashion will change, will become available, because it will mirror what people wear in the metaverse. So you have to be aware. Well, if I'm a handbag manufacturer, if I sell cosmetics, if I sell cars, if I have a small business, if I'm a farmer, if I'm a grocery retailer. So how do I make sure people, when they go shopping in a metaverse, they're shopping from me?
Right. Well, I will say I have bought my children Fortnite bucks so that they can have different costumes on their video game characters, right? So I definitely can connect the dots with the video game culture and exactly what you're talking about.
Now magnify that 1,000 times.
Right. Right.
Because you will have homes in the metaverse. You will have cars in the metaverse. And in your homes, what do you need? Furniture and accessories,
electronics, yeah, everything.
I think I was the third person in the world to write an article on this topic, and magazines wouldn't pick it up. No one would pick it up because they thought it was just the dumbest thing. Now it's amazing how much content is out there, but I'm amazed at how many people are reaching out to me and they are asking this question. We don't even understand this. How do we as a business even figure out how to be part of this? And that's the question I'm receiving the most. We don't understand it. We don't know how to be part of it, but we're afraid if we aren't taking it serious, we're going to get left behind. And I'm like, that's the smartest thing you could make. Let's talk about this. How do you become a member of it? How do you become part of it? And I just think your retail audience, Anyone who has a small business, they really need to have an understanding of this. Don't panic, but have an understanding of it.
Okay. Check. I got to study up on the metaverse. I'll be the first to say it, but no, great insights as always. And obviously it's not going anywhere. I mean, with the recent announcement from Facebook changing their name and all of the, that if you haven't watched Mark Zuckerberg's announcement of changing the name of Facebook to Meta, like you have to watch that because it will kind of close the loop here on any misunderstandings you have with what Brittan's saying. This is absolutely coming in a very big way. And it is hard to kind of wrap your mind around, but it is coming. So you mentioned previously the technology realm of grocery retail and retail as a whole. One thing that you're talking a lot about on your LinkedIn is rapid grocery delivery. Rapid grocery concept. So let's talk about that.
So it was interesting. I started writing about this about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And again, because I do a lot of research, I saw this trend and I kind of stumbled upon it. I started looking at these new companies being started in Europe, especially Germany. And I'm like, well, why in the world are these companies being started to deliver groceries in 10 minutes? I'm like, the only way you could do that is if you reduce the number of SKUs, and you'd have to open up all kinds of dark stores, micro fulfillment centers. And I said, you'd probably have to have them about a mile apart. Well, lo and behold, the more I dug into it, I realized that's exactly what they had done. And one of the companies I researched is a company called Gorillas. Yeah. And it's literally named after the wild beast, the gorilla. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. I'm like, what are they up to? So I started to reach out to people at the company, and to their credit, and I appreciated this, they trusted me enough to say, this is really what our game plan is. But what amazed me is they said, and we follow you on LinkedIn. So I said, all right, I'll make you a deal. I said, you tell me everything you're doing. And I said, for free, I'll give you my advice on things I think maybe you can change. And they were ready to do that. And I was more than happy to do it myself. And so what I realized very quickly is that, number one, there were going to be about 5 or 6 companies in Europe that were going to start rapid grocery delivery, where they would have about 2,000 items. The customer could place an order, and they would have people riding bikes or scooters, and they would fulfill the order from dark stores, and within 10 to 15 minutes have it to the location. Now, I wasn't impressed with that at all. And the reason why I wasn't impressed with it is I said, this is too small. And I said, you keep talking about rapid grocery delivery. And I said, I believe what we're really seeing here is the beginning of what I think will be really what I would term real-time retail delivery, where I said, I believe what's going to happen is that as consumers embrace rapid grocery delivery, they're going to ask this question: why is it I can get my groceries in 15 minutes, but I can't get apparel, shoes, a handbag, electronics, my cosmetics, and so forth? And I said, that's where I believe you need to be heading towards. That you need to be able to say to all retailers, give us access to your inventory, give us access to your store. Give us the freedom to pre-position that inventory in other locations, and we'll deliver everything. Within reason, of course, in about 10 or 15 minutes, real-time retail delivery. And that's exactly where I believe we are headed now, based on the fact I'm now advising several of these companies. I'm advising one of the most well-known companies in this space. And that's the thing I'm pushing them to do, is step back and think bigger. And it's starting to take off. The majority of these companies in Europe have entered the United States. Getter, Gorillas, company called Joker. There's a company called Bike. It's a Russian company. It's amazing. The Russian companies are doing really well in this space. I lived in Russia in 2019 and worked with some of them, and I'm very impressed with how they operate. But literally, what's happening in the United States is there is a segment of retail now where the consumer can order product in 10 minutes, it's delivered. And so grocery retailers are being pressured to be able to do this. And so what's going to happen is you're going to see the majority of grocery retailers having no choice but to either partner with a company or they'll have to start this service themselves to where they can say to Lori, yes, Lori, you can pick from these 2,000 items and it'll be to your house in 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. It's going to be the single most disruptive thing ever in the grocery industry. I truly believe that, because what it's going to do is influence consumers to say to retailers, I like having things in 10 minutes. And the reason why I knew early on this would happen is because, again, consumer behavior. When consumers place an e-commerce order, what they do is think about it. They're always thinking about it. I placed the order for my groceries. Is it going to arrive? I placed an order for cosmetics. Is it going to arrive tomorrow? They're constantly thinking about it. So if they knew there was a method where whatever they ordered would be delivered in 10 or 15 minutes, they would embrace that because they don't have to think about it anymore. It just becomes part of the infrastructure of their lives. So think about this. When Lori needs a drink, she goes to the sink, she pulls up the tap, pulls up the handle on the sink, and she can fill up a glass of water. You can go to your refrigerator and stick the glass in the dispenser. It's part of your infrastructure.
Right.
So now what is going to happen is that rapid grocery retail is going to change the infrastructure need for the consumer. The consumer is going to say, when I place that order, my need is I need it to be here in minutes because it's part of my life. It's now part of my infrastructure. But then that's going to influence them to say, I ordered that handbag. I want that here. It's not that magically consumers suddenly need things in 15 minutes. It's the fact that they now know it's available. And consumers, when given a choice, will always err towards the side of getting things faster, not slower.
Right.
So this is going to have a massive disruptive effect. Having said that, what this means then is that grocery retailers have to be making investments in technology to work with rapid grocery delivery companies and with all consumers, the micro-fulfillment technology that I've spoken about, where robotics are used to fulfill orders, not people. Because these robotic systems can pick orders much faster than humans. And then this is going to accelerate the adoption of autonomous vehicles or teleoperated vehicles. I'm a member of a board of directors on a company. We sell teleoperated robots. People sitting in Mexico City drive these little robots to places here in the United States. They literally drive the little robot. The robots deliver groceries. It's a teleoperated vehicle. You can drive it in a bike lane. You can drive it on the sidewalk. It's not autonomous. So it was been approved in the majority of states. You're going to start seeing many, many of these types of robotic devices in use, certainly starting more in 2022. By 2025, this will all be part of our infrastructure. It will be as if we never lived without it.
Wow. Okay. So amazing. And a ton of thoughts as you're talking. The first is something that you and I talked about the last time you were on the podcast, and we were talking a lot about micro fulfillment. I told you at the time, I was like, so I don't really know if I want a robot picking my fresh produce, and so how has the technology changed? Because you were explaining at that time, like the last time you were on the show, you were explaining, micro fulfillment can be used for things like packaged goods, and you can still use the human element and touch for selecting those perimeter items, the fresh items, and most definitely the fresh produce. So has the game plan changed with that, or
100%? Okay. So you're still going to see the adoption of micro fulfillment. What I have said for the last 5 years to retailers is that you must step back and you must understand the only way for you to succeed in the future is you must turn your stores into big vending machines. Your stores must be able to fulfill orders to customers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And the way you do that is by installing these micro fulfillment systems. That's absolutely going to happen. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, however, consumers absolutely have this phobia of I'd rather pick it. Yeah. But they also say, I like the idea of being able to order things online. So the strategy that I've designed for a couple of retailers and a couple of companies is I said, give the consumer the ability to pick what they want while sitting at home. And they're like, well, how's that possible? And I said, we now have smart carts, a company called Caper, for example. Instacart owns them. And I said, you can motorize the Caper car. You can teleoperate the caper cart, and on that cart can be a robotic arm from a company called Dexterity or someone else. It literally has the ability to pick up one blueberry.
Wow.
One blueberry and pick it up, and there's a camera right there. So imagine Lori sitting at home, logging into whatever her favorite grocery retailer is, and she checks out a smart cart. And Lori takes that cart and she goes down the produce aisle and she picks out whatever she wants. She picks up anything she wants. She looks at it with the camera. She puts it down. The hand is so sensitive, it tells you how old that fruit is based on how it feels, based on the density of it. It reads the date that was put there. It can detect a bruise. It can detect a wormhole. That's how sophisticated it is. So in tests that have been done, there was no difference between the ability of the human to pick up a piece of fruit that was good or bad or the robotic arm. There was no difference.
Yeah, actually, maybe even it's better. Because some of that technology, like being able to detect these bruises and wormholes, that reminds me of technology that's in the packing houses. That's so sophisticated. I mean, it absolutely is capturing things that you cannot, as a human being, see or feel or sense in any way, shape, or form.
Correct. It actually has the ability to detect salmonella, everything on its hand.
Okay.
So you can be shopping for fruits and vegetables from the comfort of your home. You can pick that, while your other groceries are being fulfilled by the robotic system because it's ambient temperature. It's boxes of rice, bags of beans. You don't care about that.
Right.
But you pick the fruits and vegetables you want. The little cart then goes to the back room of the store where a person takes it out, prepares the order, and a robotic cart, if you're close enough, will deliver to you, or a person will deliver that to you. So you were able to pick what you wanted, but you were still able to do it remote.
Right.
So this is where I'm saying the future your sons are going to be living in very quickly. You never check out. You never check out. You have the ability to do things from the comfort of your home, but you're still able to pick things in a grocery store using a robotic arm. Make no mistake, this is a reality. This is going to happen. And so when you're talking to grocery retailers and you're talking to farmers and you're talking to customers, you want to be hinting at these things to get them more comfortable with it. Because I guarantee you, once people understand how easy it is to drive the little cart, and many times the cart will just be programmed to go to the produce section. It just goes there. It just follows you there. And then you basically can push the cart. Not push it, but the cart basically is moved along. You determine that, you pick what you want, and then the cart's programmed to go to the back room on its own. So it's an incredibly simple thing to do. So yeah, it's amazing how retailers are saying, I know my customers are going to want to shop on their own for fruits and vegetables because it's the most personal thing to them. But how do we take advantage of technology and the ability to let them do it remote? So this is really going to be a cool thing that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. And as you're talking, I can't help but think about the Amazon effect on consumer expectations for, how long things should take to get to them. It started with Amazon Prime and the 2-day shipping of like the majority of consumer goods. You can have them at your house within 2 days. And then now with the fulfillment, like with the advancements at Amazon that occurred several years ago with like Amazon Prime Now, where you can get it in 30 minutes to 2 hours. And even today, I logged in this morning to get like a cell phone repair kit, and it was listed as an Amazon Prime product line. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, it's a 2-day window before I can get this repair kit for my iPhone. And I was like, okay, great. Like I was satisfied with that. Well, then I went to checkout and there was, for an additional amount of money, and I don't remember how much it was. I mean, like less than $10, I could get it actually this morning before 10 a.m. And I thought, oh, well, I'll do that. And so I paid for that. But as you're describing this evolution, I can't help but think about Amazon, and with your rich history at Amazon and all that you've done there, I want to take some time to like talk about that. Like Amazon is still the beast of the disruption, in my opinion, in all things, consumer lifestyle. Like it's not just grocery.
Well, it isn't. But the thing you have to remember is that, Amazon was started July 5th, 1994. And Jeff Bezos always understood this. He was not there to create a company. He was there to disrupt an industry. And he knew there was one truism that would exist in 1994, well into the future. Customers wanted choice, they wanted low prices, and they wanted things fast. And so he designed a company that always had an eye towards, how do I give the customer more choices? How do I give them choices at a lower cost? But how do I constantly increase the speed? So now you have Amazon that's actually been disrupted by these companies in Europe, the rapid grocery delivery companies. And so what's happening is that now Amazon's pivoting. And Amazon has started to say, okay, we're going to now change our ecosystem model. So they're going to open up more Amazon Fresh stores. From the Amazon Fresh stores, they're going to offer 15-minute curbside pickup, but they're also going to offer 15-minute delivery from the store within a certain radius of the stores. So they'll open up many, many Amazon Fresh stores and they'll do 15-minute delivery from there. The big thing, the smart thing they're doing is that 15-minute curbside pickup, to where you or anyone else could say, I want this ordered, I'm going to be driving by, I'll be there in 15 minutes. I want it ready. And it will be. You'll pull in and it'll be ready. So Amazon is investing heavily in all things logistics, all things fulfillment. But what they're really doing, again, is that infrastructure, what I mentioned earlier. Amazon views the world as an ecosystem. And within that ecosystem are all these tribes of people. And in each of these tribes, these people have different needs. The need for retail, the need for food, the need for pharmacy products, and so on. So Amazon's continually strengthening their ability to meet the needs of everyone in all the tribes. And that especially is true about the things that you purchase the most on an annual basis. Groceries. Why does Amazon want to be in this $1.5 trillion industry? Because they know, like everybody else, consumers purchase more groceries than anything else on an annual basis. Food and groceries. Those are the two things consumers purchase the most. So Amazon is doing everything they can to remove all the friction that occurs when consumers shop for these things. So Amazon absolutely has massive plans for grocery, including robotic delivery, autonomous vehicles, new technology in the home, the ability to be able to start focusing more on prepared meals, ready to eat meals, cook meals and deliver it. The entire concept of the kitchen is going to be changing. By 2030, most people will not have the same type of appliances in the kitchen that they do today. And the reason for that is because of these retailers, so many of them creating an infrastructure where Lori Taylor can ask her two sons, what would you like for dinner tonight? One says, I want filet mignon. The other one says, I want a chicken breast with broccoli, which probably would never happen, but you know where I'm going with this.
Okay.
But you say, great. You use a voice activated account, you place the order, and at exactly 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. it arrives. And it arrives with a temperature and with a consistency as if it just came out of someone's kitchen. So that's what we're looking at. It's an integrated ecosystem for all things grocery, all things food. And it's going to have a tremendous impact on consumer behavior, the way we socialize, but it also gives you a lot more time back in your day. And so from a quality of life perspective, it absolutely is going to have an impact.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. So, I mean, Brittan, I don't even know where to go next with this because it's just like everything that you're saying. I'm like, yes, makes sense. But I have to ask you, so every time that you've been on and so often on your LinkedIn page, you're talking about recommended acquisitions that you would, to help retailers that are maybe challenger brands to whether it's Walmart or they're chasing Amazon. I mean, I kind of feel like everyone's chasing Amazon. And then also these outliers that have like this, like what's happened with Kohl's, for instance, you've talked about that extensively on your page, or the opportunities that exist with a company such as DoorDash, which you have talked about extensively as well. So is there any, are there any of those acquisition recommendations or the insights that you have that you'd like to share on the show today?
Well, I still maintain that the best acquisition, the best strategy would be Home Depot and Walmart merging. I was in the Washington Post, I think like 2 months ago, because they had read a LinkedIn post. And I said, this is what I believe should happen. And they reached out to me and they said, well, we've reached out to Jim Cramer and others, and they say that'll never happen. I said, well, he's wrong. 2 days later, Home Depot and Walmart announced that they've signed an agreement where Walmart is going to do last mile deliveries for Home Depot product.
Wow.
And I said, that's the spark. I said, this is why I said it. I said, because Home Depot and Walmart understand there is value working together, and they're just going to extend that collaboration, and to the point where I believe they could merge. So I absolutely think that's one of the cool things out there. Certainly DoorDash is the most underrated company out there, but it's the most dangerous company to grocery retailers. It's the most dangerous company to ship, Instacart, Uber, and so forth. DoorDash absolutely has massive plans, and they're absolutely going for it. So you're going to see a lot of things DoorDash is going to get into. Certainly.
I got to tell you, you're going to get a kick out of this. Guess what I DoorDashed last night? My kids, I had to DoorDash like pins and highlighters that my kid needed for school. I was at my other son's basketball game, and I've got my 14-year-old saying, "Oh, I need all that." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh. Okay." And I was like, fine, I'm DoorDashing it. So I DoorDashed him like these school supplies that he needed. Who would have thought that the restaurant delivery company could be your, that rapid school supply delivery fulfillment that you need as well. I mean, I find myself using DoorDash more often too.
Absolutely. And you will, because DoorDash is now a retailer. They have an online store called DashMart.
Yes.
And so it's basically a virtual store, but they have physical dark stores that carry that inventory. They own their own inventory, and they will be delivering it. DoorDash is one of those companies where I said they're smart. And I said they'll more than likely make an acquisition of a physical retailer. So not only is DoorDash going to be that company that can deliver the pens and pencils you need, but it's also that company that could easily one day have their name above the door of a very large retailer that they acquire. The idea of DoorDash acquiring Kohl's is not out of the question.
Right.
It just isn't. The idea of DoorDash acquiring Sprouts or some other retailer isn't out of the question. So what I really say to everyone listening to you is be prepared. Because there's so many things happening that companies are just simply going to have to merge. I still say in the grocery industry, the absolutely smartest move would be Albertsons merging with Ahold Delhaize. The executives hate it when I say this. It drives them crazy. They've asked me not to say it, but I say, well, the reason why I keep saying it is because you ignore it. But you tell me it is the best thing for you. But then you say, well, we prefer just operate independently. I'm like, that's a silly idea. I said, embrace this. You tell me it's a good idea. Go for it. Oh, but Brittan, you don't know. You have no idea, Brittan, how hard it'd be. I'm like, since when do you make decisions based on whether it's hard or easy? You make decisions on if it's the best thing for your company and your customers. Go for it. Don't be afraid of this. So I would love to see that happen. But will there be lots of acquisitions? Yes. Pay attention to what's going on with these rapid grocery delivery companies. The name Gorillas, Getter, Bike, Fridge No More, all of these companies are going to be common brands. They're going to be very well known by the end of 2022 for most people. So it's amazing the things that these companies could do as well.
I agree. So Kroger's the closest store to me. It's like a mile away. Anything you want to share about Kroger? I shop there a lot. That's why I have to ask.
Oh, no. So Kroger. So here's the thing about Kroger. They followed about 80% of what I recommended to them. But 20% they didn't follow, I think, is a catastrophic mistake to this day. So I'm in contact with people at Kroger, and I'm still pushing them. You got to go big in micro fulfillment. That's number one. I said, number two, you still have far too many stores where you walk in, there aren't products on the shelf. You have too high of an out of stock. That's embarrassing. It should not be allowed. I said, you have to fix that. And so what I believe is going to happen with Kroger is that probably by the end of 2022, they'll have a new CEO. I'm encouraging them to hire someone from outside the company. The reason why I want that is I believe that what needs to happen at Kroger is the CEO comes in and they rip it apart. They just absolutely rip that company apart, question everything. The company's been in business over 100 years. They primarily have promoted from within. And I think that's a very dangerous thing to have happen. So I'm encouraging Kroger, go big. Hire someone who has no fear at all of ripping that company apart. You will see Kroger, I think, possibly looking at some mergers and acquisitions. I still say to Kroger, I still say to Target. I think it's a match made in heaven if Kroger and Target merge. And then Target would have access to Ocado's customer fulfillment centers, totally modernize their supply chain and do some great things. But my argument to Kroger is fix the fact that you don't have product on your shelves. All these neat little press releases where you say, we're experimenting with drones and we're experimenting with Neuro, our autonomous vehicle. I'm like, those are we too moments. And that's the phrase I created, we too. Amazon has drones, well, we do too. Walmart is using autonomous vehicles, well, we do too. These are we too moments. And I said, they mean nothing. I said, all that matters is, can you execute as a grocery store first and foremost? And you're failing to do that. So Kroger, again, hates it when I talk like this, but I said, I'm not pulling my foot off your throat. I'm going to keep putting pressure on it because I'm challenging you to do better as a retailer, because I have confidence in you that you can do great things with technology through partnerships. But never forget, at the end of the day, you exist for one reason only, to sell groceries, and you need to be the best at that.
Amazing. I love it. Brittan, you're something else. I mean, you really are just such a, just such a source of knowledge, such a source of confidence, like not at all surprised that you served in the Marine Corps. I mean, that kind of comes through with how you carry yourself. Like you're a champ. I love it. So, this has been an incredible episode. And I think that, we'd be remiss to not kind of recap it here before we close things out. I mean, as I think about what you've said, the biggest thing that I think consumers can expect in 2022 is more choices more quickly. Like, I think that's kind of where my headspace is at as you talk about that. Like, it's this concept of the rapid grocery fulfillment, I think is coming at us in a very big way, like more quickly than the topics of the metaverse and some of the other things that we've talked about. Unfortunately, I think I think people are dealing with it. I mean, we've been dealing with that for, several months at this point, but I do unfortunately think it's also going to get worse. We know that the price of food is going up. That's a complicated thing in the food industry because food security, really, folks, like food security is the ultimate national security. And it's no one wants to see the price of food go up, but at the same time, we can't have our farmers go out of business, nor our supply chain stakeholders. So it's really complicated, and prices are up everywhere for the entire supply chain. So, but yeah, I think that the positive takeaway is, from the consumer point of view and the produce mom's lens, is, wow, like I'm going to have real-time access to so much as we look ahead in 2022. But
that's 100%.
Yeah.
And here's the trick. The thing that I'm going to say to your audience is this: don't step back and say, well, I don't need groceries in 10 minutes. It's not about that.
Right.
This is about advancement. This is about transformation. And far too many analysts and far too many so-called experts in retail, they keep asking the question, well, no one needs groceries in 10 minutes. This isn't about groceries. This is about the fact we have the ability to make it happen. It's an ability to change the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave your audience with this. When Henry Ford unveiled his automobile, there were members of Congress, members of the press, who were saying we need to ban the automobile because it's going to put companies that make horse-drawn wagons, saddles, and buggy whips out of business. And what kind of a world do we want to live in, where we put people out of business to do nothing more than ride in a car? Now, imagine where we would be as a society if every time a new ability to change the infrastructure came along, we halted it. We prevented it from happening because we thought it was a bad idea. Mm-hmm. And so rapid grocery delivery came out of nowhere. No one truly needs their groceries in 10 minutes, but now we have the ability to do it. And we must embrace it. We must embrace the technology. We must embrace the business models, because overall, what's going to happen is it's going to improve the quality of life for everyone. Just as Lori can go to the refrigerator and open up and get whatever she wants, people will soon be able to think about ordering something, order it, and within 10 minutes, it's at their door. Imagine what that's going to do to their quality of life, but imagine how it's going to transform retail and the supply chain. And that's why it's going to happen. It only makes sense. It's going to make everyone's lives better. We cannot stop this. We cannot put the genie back in the bottle. It's already here. And this is what I wrote about a year and a half ago. I said, this is the future and it's already here.
That's so good. Brittan, you're the best. I'm not going to wait a whole year before you come back on. Like, I absolutely love having you on the show. So we got to have you back on. But it's been an incredible episode. Thank you so much for being here. The one tradition's not changed, and I hope I never do change it. Our guests get the final word. They get to close out the show with the closing remarks. So, but before I throw the mic back to you for the final remarks, I just want to say thank you. And I want to encourage everyone that's with us today. Please, I think that the best advice I can give you is go on LinkedIn and find Brittan Ladd on LinkedIn. Very easy to find, and follow him because you're going to continue to learn so much. And he really is so gracious with the knowledge that he shares and everything that he publishes on LinkedIn and other platforms. So, but with that, Brittan, thank you for being here, and please sign us off from the show.
Well, all I'll say is this. I followed you again for the year. I'm super proud of you, Lori. I'm so proud of you for what you've done. I think you've got so many more things you're going to do. So think big. And as we talked about before the show, disrupt yourself. You're very important out there. I think you do a great job. And again, I'm just looking at you having a super year in 2022.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.